Where do you see our economy headed over the next 10 to 15 years?
Stagnation. I think stagnation is upon us, and I think that the possibility of I've been less worried about inflation in the long term than stagnation. We're spending too much money. We are overregulated. The sort of innovative capacity. I know there are a lot of people putting a lot of hopes in AI, and maybe that hope is justified in terms of radical increases in productivity. Although they haven't really been able to make the connection between AI and kind of general use productivity yet. It's very early, so we'll see how that applies to the vast majority of industries. Hopefully, it'll lead to a real productivity increase. But absent, that sort of world-changing technology, it seems to me that we have not geared our economy for success. That we've overregulated it. That we've provided enormous amounts of benefits to people that I think are disincentives to innovate. We're still the best bet on the block. But I think the entire global economy is in for a world of hurt. We've taken out way too much debt, all of us.
What about housing affordability?
I mean, housing affordability could be solved simply by removing so many of the building regulations. It's very, very difficult to build in a lot of places. They're huge. To get a new house built in California is really, really difficult. Not as difficult as it is in some other countries, but it's very rough. If you have create major barriers to entry for creating more housing stock, it's going to be very difficult to bring down the price. And the other thing is that, one of the things that really hasn't happened yet, but I think it's going to, is the move away from cities. I know there's a lot of talk about this during COVID. I think that if you want a cheaper house, you're going to, people want a cheaper house where they currently live. And that's not how the market works. The price of your house is what the price of your house is, because you're competing with other people to buy that house. If you would like a cheaper house, you might have to think about not living where you live. And that's a hard thing for people. But one of the weirdest things about kind of the American experiment right now is that if you look at the history of Americans moving for jobs, fewer Americans right now are moving for jobs than any time in modern American history, which is super weird. It's actually way easier to move now than it was when your grandpappy's grandpappy had to get on a covered wagon and cross Native American territory and sit by a river and wait for bad shit to happen to them. Like now, if you want to move, it actually is quite doable. So if you want to move for a job, you can. I understand why people want to stay put. I understand you got family nearby and all of that sort of stuff. These are real considerations. But I think that there has set into a lot of the American mind this idea that it's owed to me. I get to live where I want and the price is going to be low. I get to live where I want and take the job that I want and get the pay that I want. It's you don't get to dictate to the world what the conditions are. The conditions are what the conditions are. And so if you want to alleviate you had a housing stock problem back in major cities in the mid-19th century. People did. They got on wagons. They went across a mountain and built a hut in the middle of nowhere. This is the way, typically the way that housing stock problems get solved is you go to a place where the housing is cheaper, more affordable. You can build it yourself. That's how it will be solved this time too, because it certainly isn't going to be solved by rent control or by government subsidized housing.
Yeah. Do you think homeownership is necessary? Because when I look at the price between renting and buying, and I've said this a lot recently, that renting is substantially cheaper right now. So it makes more sense, in my opinion, to rent over the next 10 years than buy a house and speculate on its value.
I think it depends where. It's all locationally based. I think that would I buy in Los Angeles right now? No. I think the prices there are wildly inflated. I think there's also a real weird stickiness to the market right now because of the mortgage rates. And because the mortgage rates have been so high, that means that there's less housing stock available on the market because nobody wants to sell their house and then get into a mortgage that's twice what they were paying. So that's been a real problem. But yeah, listen, I've always been a big fan of homeownership. Since I got married, we've never rented. I always bought because I just felt like I was flushing my money down the toilet. But that's because the math worked. If the math doesn't work, the math doesn't work. And so you have to make the best decision. If you'd rather take the money that you're saving on rent and put it in the stock market, then go for it. That might pencil out for you better. Historically speaking, depending on the market, it may pencil out better to buy your house than to rent your house. It depends how risk-seeking or risk-averse you are, right? I tend to be relatively risk-averse about my investments, and so I like real estate as a risk-averse investment, meaning it's never going to be worth zero. Whatever my house is worth now, if I hold on to it for long enough, it will be worth more than I'm paying for the house right now. Again, that's a pretty risk-averse way of viewing housing. And I think for some people, that's probably the right way to view it.
Another interesting idea that I wasn't exposed to before 4 or 5 months ago is that the average square footage of new developments has just been steadily increasing over the past 40 or so years. And people are getting in places that are 23, 26, 2,700 square feet, which is a very large home. Whereas back in the day, people were more used to the 1,200 square feet to the 1,500. You said you grew 100%. Up in 1,100. And obviously it wasn't super comfortable, but it still worked and it was conducive to a fine,
I remember, so my parents, when I was 11, moved into a 2,400 square foot house. And I was like, this place is a palace. This place is enormous.
Yeah.
And now we live in a place that's like 3 times that
Now
size.
a lot of
and it's-
developments are like 3,000 square feet and stuff like
well,
that.
yeah, I mean, because if you're, because again, upward mobility means that people want nicer stuff all the time and they want more space and they want higher ceilings, for example. And if you walk into a house that's built in the 50s now, most people, you walk into a house that's built in the 50s, you're like, this place is cramped. Well, are people 3 feet tall? Like, what's the deal? And, that's because the market tends to push the limits of what's available and what's possible.
I think it'd be interesting if there were more tax incentives for developers to create smaller square footage houses, because it's more profitable right now for them to make the bigger houses. Like the
It's also
McMansions and
land
stuff like that.
prices are so expensive that they have to build bigger to get that ROI on square footage. And then if they get incentives, it's the taxpayer that's then still paying for it. The money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So either way, the money's got to.
I mean, there's a very good free market reason why they're building bigger houses. And if somebody wants to try and make a bundle off of making small single-family homes, again, I think part of the problem is that the places where people want small single-family homes are likely to be in major cities where those are way more expensive. And if you take that same price and then you apply it to like rural Texas, you can have yourself a giant ranch. So